Shedeur Sanders walked into a game he couldn't win. Not because of who he is, but because of what surrounded him. Constant pressure, no time, and no plan. What looked like poor decision-making was, in reality, desperation behind a broken offensive line. For the first time, insiders are voicing what fans have only guessed. This wasn't a rookie unraveling. It was a player left to survive in a system that never had his back. Now, a deeper truth is surfacing. This isn't just about a rookie quarterback learning the ropes. It's about a team structure that's crumbling, led by a head coach whose decisions are beginning to face serious pushback. Stefanski's leadership is no longer above question, and Shedeur's outing is forcing a full re-evaluation of what accountability really looks like in Cleveland. Shedeur Sanders had barely stepped onto the field before the noise started.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Critics, fans, analysts, everyone jumped on the rookie quarterback after the Browns' brutal game against the Bears. But according to Browns insiders, the story everyone thought they knew? It's not the full truth. Sanders wasn't just battling Chicago. He was fighting against his own environment. This wasn't a case of a young QB melting under pressure. It was survival mode from the first snap. The offensive line collapsed faster than a folding chair, and field position? A nightmare. Sanders wasn't just trying to move the chains. He was digging out of a ditch on every drive. What was painted as rookie struggles was, in reality, a full-on systemic breakdown. Insiders started to talk, and when they did, the shift was loud. Blaming Shedeur? That's easy. Lazy even. But inside the building, attention turned to Kevin Stefanski and his coaching staff. The play calling was bland, the timing was off, and clock management seemed like an afterthought. For a young quarterback already drowning in pressure, the last thing he needed was a coach who looked just as lost. This wasn't about a few missed throws. It was about a system that left its most important piece exposed. When Shedeur dropped back, he wasn't operating in a clean pocket. He was running for his life. And the more insiders analyzed it, the clearer it became. He never had a real chance. Post-game, Stefanski did what coaches do. He gave the usual lines about execution and learning opportunities. But that didn't land. Not this time. Because the insiders, people who've watched this team spiral in similar ways before, weren't buying it. The Browns weren't just failing. They were failing in predictable, preventable ways. And if Shedeur was getting all the blame, who was holding Stefanski accountable? That question started echoing louder than any box score. The same coaching staff that couldn't stop the bleeding was now expected to guide a rookie through the fire. It was becoming obvious that wasn't working. Digging into tape, analysts pointed to everything but Sanders as the cause of chaos. Penalties killed momentum. Field position pinned the offense back. So far it felt like they were playing from a parking lot. And Dillon Gabriel's short stints in similar game situations only reinforced the point. This wasn't a quarterback problem. It was a total team failure. Every possession began in crisis mode. Offensive penalties stacked up, forcing Sanders to climb out of second and long and third and forever scenarios repeatedly. Play after play, it was less about executing a strategy and more about damage control. That's not a fair ask for any quarterback, let alone a rookie. When Shedeur eventually addressed the media, he didn't make excuses. He never does. He owned the performance, but didn't dodge reality. He acknowledged what everyone in the locker room already knew. The circumstances were brutal. And while he didn't call out the coaching, the frustration in his tone said enough. His composure didn't go unnoticed. Even in a storm, he stayed calm. But more importantly, insiders noted that he stayed aggressive. He kept looking downfield, kept trying to make plays, even when the odds were stacked. That kind of mental toughness? It speaks louder than Stefanski's defenders started thinning out. The questions turned sharp. How does a game plan end up this flat against a beatable opponent? Why was clock management once again a glaring weakness? And why was a rookie quarterback left so completely unsupported? This wasn't the first time Stefanski's game management came under fire. But now, with a rookie's development on the line, the stakes were different. The team's inability to adjust mid-game wasn't just frustrating, it was damaging. It turned what could have been a growth opportunity into a confidence killer. Inside the building, the conversation turned serious. Stefanski's job security, once stable, was now a live question. Not because of one loss, but because the same cracks that plagued the team before were now threatening to waste a promising rookie season. And for the first time, insiders weren't shielding the head coach. They were calling him out. The issue wasn't about Shedeur's arm or Reed's. It was about the environment. No rookie flourishes in chaos. And Stefanski, with all his experience, should have been the one to shield Sanders from it. Instead, he fed him to it. Repeatedly. The shift in tone wasn't just noticeable. It was damning. He still had his believers. Coaches, players, media, all pointed to his effort and resilience. Every snap was a challenge, yet he stayed locked in. Not once did he check out. He took the hits, adjusted when he could, and kept competing. That effort? It mattered. It reminded people that stats don't tell the whole story. A box score can't capture the grind of working behind a line that doesn't hold, or throwing routes that never had time to develop. What Shedeur showed was grit, and that's something the insiders refused to overlook. In the days after, interviews with players and insiders started to paint a unified message. This isn't a Shedeur Sanders problem. It's an organizational problem. And until that's fixed, no quarterback, rookie, or veteran will stand a chance. The insiders emphasized that systems shape performance. And this system? It's broken. They pushed back on the idea of blame altogether. It wasn't about scapegoats anymore. It was about process, about structure, about holding leadership to the same standards players are judged by. And in that shift, Sanders found support, not in sympathy, but in truth. As Shedeur sat on the sideline after a brutal drive, cameras caught what words couldn't say. Not frustration, not resignation, just endurance. That moment summed up everything the insiders later confirmed. He wasn't losing because he lacked the skill. He was losing because the structure around him was falling apart. It's easy to pick apart a bad stat line, but it's harder to look deeper and see the environment that created it. The insiders did that work. They pulled back the curtain. And what they found was a system that isn't built to support growth. It's built to survive bad habits. SS New Match Photos. By the time the next day's headlines hit, the photo of Shedeur sitting alone on the bench had already made the rounds. Some called it the look of defeat, but insiders knew better. That was the face of someone holding in every ounce of frustration from being asked to win a fight with both hands tied. The cameras didn't catch what happened in the huddle, where teammates kept trying to regroup under impossible circumstances. But the insiders did. And what they saw was a quarterback still leading, still believing, despite every advantage being handed to the other side. On the other side of the chaos stood Kevin Stefanski, still glued to his play sheet as the clock ran down and drive stalled. The offensive patterns never adjusted, and the rhythm never changed. It was like watching a script play out that everyone knew would flop, except the guy holding the pen. The calls kept coming in late. Timeouts were burned for no reason. And the fourth quarter? A slow bleed. Stefanski's demeanor didn't shift, even as fans began to vocalize what the insiders had already started saying behind the scenes. Something has to give. Shedeur, meanwhile, didn't flinch in front of the mic. He took ownership of the game, even when everyone else could see he was operating with scraps. The reporters tried to bait him, poke at the coaching, the line, the system. He didn't take it. But here's what matters. His silence spoke volumes. When a rookie avoids the blame game, even after being left out to dry, it tells you exactly what kind of player you're dealing with. It's not just about arm talent. It's about accountability. And Shedeur brought more of it than anyone else on the field that day. Kevin Stefanski, post-game interview. Stefanski, on the other hand, rolled out the usual. We've got to be better. We need to execute. We didn't do enough. But those lines are starting to sound like white noise, especially when the same issues, penalties, miscommunication, flat game plans happen week after week. The insiders weren't buying it. They weren't even pretending to anymore. Stefanski had overseen too many breakdowns to keep brushing them off. And the loss to the Bears was the tipping point, because now it wasn't just about losing games. It was about stalling development. SS practicing. All week long, insiders watched Sanders at practice. Still sharp, still locked in. Still diving into film like his next start was on the line. Because it was. But as one source put it, he's doing everything right, and we're still setting him up to fail. The support around Shedeur wasn't evolving. The reps were happening, but the structural issues weren't being addressed. And that's when the shift really settled in. You can't talk about talent development if the environment doesn't evolve with it. And with Shedeur, the gap was widening fast. Looking back at the Bears game through this new lens, everything starts to click. It wasn't a matter of being outplayed. It was a matter of being unprepared. Field position alone buried the Browns' offense from the first whistle. And the penalties? A slow death. Drive after drive, something always went wrong before Sanders even had a chance to make something go right. The Bears didn't do anything spectacular. They just let the Browns beat themselves. And by the end of the third quarter, even the broadcast booth was hinting that something deeper was broken. Because no rookie should be left standing in a storm with zero protection and no umbrella. KS match photos. Photos from the sideline told a brutal story. Stefanski pacing, arms crossed, eyes darting to the scoreboard like it had betrayed him. No visible emotion. No fire. And that flat energy matched the play on the field. The insiders noticed it. And fans did too. Where was the urgency? The accountability? The sense that someone was ready to course correct? It wasn't there. And that's what turned whispers into full-throated doubts. Stefanski wasn't just calling plays. He was piloting a sinking ship with no map and no intention to adjust course. Shedeur. Back at the podium, Shedeur stayed poised. He talked about improving, about getting back to work. But he also said something that stuck with the insiders. You can't let the results stop you from learning what really matters. That wasn't just a quote. It was a quiet indictment of the dysfunction surrounding him. He didn't have to name names. Everyone knew who he was talking about. Because in that moment, he became the grown-up in the room. The rookie dealing with all the fallout, showing more leadership than the people meant to guide him. Kevin Stefanski and Shedeur Sanders. And that's where the contrast got hard to ignore. Stefanski, the coach, seemed passive and reactive. Sanders, the rookie, looked focused and driven. The power dynamic had flipped. And for insiders watching both, the question became unavoidable. Why is the rookie showing more resolve than the head coach? There's a weight that comes with being the leader of a franchise. Stefanski wore it like it didn't fit. Shedeur? He carried it, even when he shouldn't have had to. That dynamic, more than any box score or stat sheet, told the story of where this franchise really stood. Inside Berea, the coaching evaluation started shifting from performance to philosophy. Stefanski's methods, once praised for stability, now looked rigid and disconnected. The refusal to adapt was costing games, yes. But it was also risking something bigger, the growth of a future franchise quarterback. Insiders stopped asking, is Shedeur good enough? And started asking, is this system good enough for Shedeur? That's a massive shift. And it's not just media talk. It's an indictment of how leadership choices trickle down to talent development, or stifle it before it starts. SS NFL match compilation. Across the league, rookie quarterbacks are being measured in inches. A good throw here, a missed read there, and suddenly your entire trajectory is rewritten. But Shedeur Sanders isn't just being measured. He's being magnified. Every misstep blown up, every loss drops squarely at his feet. And finally, insiders are saying what fans have been screaming. It's not fair. They looked at the tape. They compared his drives to others around the league. The difference? Most rookies aren't being thrown into the fire without a helmet. The pressure Shedeur's under isn't normal. It's engineered by a system that expects magic without offering support. And at some point, you have to call that what it is: sabotage, not strategy. Stefanski keeps leaning on the idea of execution. But execution only works if the blueprint makes sense. And right now, the playbook looks like it's being written in real time, while the game is already being played. There's no rhythm, no tempo, no feel. The insiders have started to say the quiet part out loud. Stefanski's offense is outdated, not in terms of formations or play designs, but in how it's applied. It's slow to adjust, overly reliant on timing that doesn't exist, and blind to the fact that its quarterback is constantly under siege. The scheme isn't elevating Sanders, it's dragging him down. That Bears game wasn't just a bad outing. It was a case study in dysfunction. From the first drive, the offense looked like it was stuck in reverse. Penalties on special teams backed them up inside their own 10 more than once. And by the time Shedeur could even see midfield, he had already taken 2 sacks and seen 3 drives evaporate. The frustration on the sideline wasn't subtle. Players were barking at each other. Position coaches were scrambling. And yet, the game plan never changed. It was as if the Browns came into this one with a single plan and no plan B. When Shedeur met the media again, he was calm, but tired. Tired of the same narrative. Tired of having to clean up a mess he didn't create. And while he never pointed fingers, his tone made something clear. He knew this wasn't just about performance. It was about environment. He talked about needing to stack good days, about trusting the process. But behind those stock phrases was a quiet truth. He's doing his part. The process, on the other hand, is failing him. And insiders heard that loud and clear. The drumbeat around Stefanski has grown louder each week, but the Bears' loss hit different. It wasn't just a regular season stumble. It was a flashing red light that this coach, this system, might not be built for what's next. Shedeur Sanders isn't just another quarterback. He's an investment, a future. And wasting that because of outdated coaching? That's a disaster no franchise can afford. Insiders started naming names. Not just Stefanski, but assistants, position coaches, analysts. The Browns' infrastructure is being questioned at every level. And the verdict isn't good. For a team that keeps claiming to be building something, they sure seem allergic to basic construction. Throughout the game, cameras cut to Shedeur on the sideline. No tantrums. No throwing helmets. Just a 21-year-old staring at the scoreboard like he's carrying it on his back. And, in a way, he is. Because when things go wrong, he's the one catching the heat, even though the fire started elsewhere. One insider said it best. We're teaching him bad habits by putting him in bad situations. That quote? That should scare the organization more than the loss itself. Because once you normalize dysfunction, it becomes the culture. And that's how careers get wasted. Looking at the play-by-play, it's a miracle Shedeur didn't break. First drive. Backed up at his own 7 after a holding penalty on the return. Second drive. 3 plays, sack, punt. Third drive. False start, incomplete pass, screen blown up, punt. It never stopped. At no point was there relief. No short field. No rhythm drives. Just constant uphill battles. And the worst part? The Bears weren't even doing anything complex. They rushed 4, dropped 7, and waited for the Browns to implode on their own. Which they did. In his post-game comments, Shedeur made one thing clear. He's not going anywhere. He's not checked out. He's not broken. He's learning. And while everyone else wants to draw conclusions, he's still grinding tape and working reps. That's what impressed the insiders most. He's not just saying the right things, he's doing them. The work ethic, the body language, the command in the locker room. It's all there. And yet, he's being coached like a placeholder, not a pillar. That disconnect is at the heart of this crisis. The Browns can't develop a QB if they can't build a plan that matches his. Stefanski's latest media availability did nothing to slow the bleeding. Asked directly about the offensive struggles, he offered vague reassurances. No specifics. No urgency. Just more of the same. It sounded less like leadership and more like someone reading from last year's playbook. What's missing isn't answers, it's ownership. Stefanski talks around the issues, hoping they'll fade on their own. But they're not. They're multiplying. And now, with the spotlight hotter than ever, it's becoming clear. If changes aren't made, they won't just lose games, they'll lose Shedeur. Insiders say the front office is watching closely. The patience they had with Stefanski when he inherited a broken team is wearing thin now that he's being asked to lead a young quarterback. The bar has shifted. It's not about making do with what you have. It's about maximizing what you've been given. Shedeur Sanders is a rare talent, but no talent thrives in chaos. And the Browns, despite all their talk about development, have yet to prove they can build a structure that actually supports it. If the coaching staff doesn't evolve, and fast, this won't be a learning curve. It'll be a missed opportunity they never recover from. There's a growing sense that Shedeur Sanders is being asked to carry a weight no rookie should bear. Every mistake gets amplified, every struggle treated like failure. But when the tape rolls and the insiders speak, the real story is harder to ignore. He's not being protected, not being empowered, and definitely not being set up to succeed. What's happening in Cleveland isn't just about growing pains. It's about a system stuck in the past, dragging its future down with it. And unless something changes at the top, Shedeur's rookie year risks being remembered not as a learning experience, but as a cautionary tale. If you're watching this and thinking, why does this keep happening in Cleveland? You're not alone. So hit that like button if you're tired of lazy narratives. Drop a comment if you're seeing the cracks in the system too. And subscribe, because we're not done pulling back the curtain on how this franchise keeps fumbling the future.